Wednesday, August the 3rd. Lake level is about the same as it was last week. It's about 9:15 and a quarter. Hadn't changed very much. Water temperature, it's about the same also. It's about 87 degrees, 86, 87 in the morning. Depends where you're at it. It's still pretty much under 90 degrees. It's cooled down a little bit from a couple weeks ago. The fishing's still typical summertime fishing. It seems like in the clear water down by the dam, the drop shot bites working about as good as anything. But I've been up in the White River and up into James quite a bit the last week or so. And fishing's been good up there. I'm getting a good football jig bite. Depends on the water clarity. The further up the rivers you get, if you got some stained water, I'm catching a lot of fish on football jigs, either 5/8 ounce or 3/4. And I'm using several different colors. This is a green pumpkin purple, PBJ, will work as well. Another one is a magic craw. And I'm tipping these with a Strike King Rage Craw trailer. Baby brush hog will work, or a big Rage Craw. A lot of times the bigger trailer is producing a little bit better, but I'm getting more bites on a smaller trailer. And a lot of these fish are coming on main lake or main river points, and a lot of the conservation brush piles, if you can find them anywhere from 15 to 25 foot deep, the conservation brush piles are starting to hold some good quality fish. Another thing I'm throwing through them brush piles along with the jig is a Texas rig worm. I like to throw a big worm, and I'm throwing this on a ½ ounce weight. I very seldom ever peg the weight when I'm Texas rigging, but I've got a ½ ounce tungsten weight, and this particular worm is a Lucky Strike. It's an old Guido ringworm. I don't even know if you can get them anymore, but I happen to have quite a few, so it's kind of one of my favorites. But another one, this is a Tequila Sunrise, same brand. It's a 7-inch Lucky Strike, and then I've got a Strike King one here. But it seems like the plums, black and blues, blue flag, I'm sure like a Berkeley Power Worm will work fine. But I'm throwing it the same places. If I can find the brush pile with the jig, then a lot of times the next cast I'll pick that Texas rig worm up, because you can work it a lot more effectively through the brush than you can the jig. Where the football head, gets stuck on the branches quite a bit, the Texas rig worm will come through it a lot better. But a lot of those fish have mainly been largemouths. Now I'm catching, a lot of spotted bass off like the bare gravel points, and anywhere from 12 to 25 foot deep. But the better largemouths are coming out of brush piles. And a lot of the points have got they're either on a channel swing or a bluff end. Seems like I've got to have deep water close by, and it's where these points kind of roll off. If I can find some bigger rock or a little structure like a tree or a brush pile, seems to be where the fish are holding. Now we're catching some topwater fish in the morning as well. We're catching some on a whopper plopper. Still a lot of little fish on the topwater, but if I can get down below them with like a swim bait, or even today we caught quite a few on a fish head swim, a ½ ounce with a 3.5 inch swim bait. Get down below some of them surfacing fish, seems to be a little bit bigger fish. There's white bass kind of schooling all over in different places of the lake, and they've been fun for an hour or two each morning. And we'll be catching them on jigging spoons, and they've been anywhere from 20 to 50 foot deep on a lot of the main lake points. And it's kind of easy to find out where the white bass are. If you're running down the lake and you see about 15 bass boats all sitting real close to each other, then you know there's a school of white bass out there. But they've been coming up as well, with the Kentuckys. But it seems like it's hard to catch them on top, but if you can ever see them come up, then you can get over the top of them with a white, either a ½ ounce or a 3/4 ounce white or chrome jigging spoon, like a War Eagle spoon, pig sticker, Dixie Jet. It really doesn't matter when them white bass are in that feeding frenzy. Usually anything that drops down there, you can catch them on it. But another thing I got going on too is I've also been flipping some shallow docks. Now we've had a lot of overcast days. It seems to be working a little bit better for me when the sun's out. And a lot of the fish have been probably 8 to 15 foot deep, in the boat stalls. And I'm throwing just a 3/8 ounce finesse jig. It's kind of like a watermelon with a blue. I think it's probably closer to an Okeechobee craw. And then this one here is a California 420. These are pig sticker Snowden jigs. And I got both of them tipped with the Rage Craw. Now, I mean, you hear me talk about the Rage Craw all the time. And, if I find a trailer that works better, I'll throw it. But to me, it's kind of hard to beat this little baby Rage Craw on this smaller jig. But I'm basically throwing it up in the shade of the dock, around the boat lifts, underneath the boats. It's, a pretty slow bite, but a lot of the fish, they're biting it pretty good. You'll actually feel them pick the bait up and swim with it. The majority of the fish I'm catching around these docks are, keeper fish, good solid keepers, 2 to 3/4 pound fish. But sometimes you got to hit several docks. When you find a dock that's got the fish that'll bite, you can usually catch 2 or 3 fish off the same dock. Maybe not in the same stall. You'll have to work around from one side to the other. A lot of what I'm trying to key on is how the sun is. If the sun's hitting one side of the dock real hard, I'll fish the shaded side. Some of the docks, if it's hitting the end of it, you can fish every stall, if the sun's not directly in there. But that seems to be working pretty good, and that'll get a little better too. Like I talked, I think, a little bit about last week, we always start to get a little bit of a topwater bite and a shallow bite somewhere through August, the 1st of September, and some of that seems to be happening now, because we've had a couple days where we've had some big fish in 5 or 6 feet of water or less. Now, I've had a couple of them on a jig and on a whopper plopper. You got to cover a lot of water, but the upper river arms is where I'm catching the better fish on the jigs, whether it be like the Upper Kings, Long Creek should work, James River and the Flat Creek area. Those areas got good stain in them. We've had enough rain that it hasn't muddied the water up, but it's clouded it up some. So you can get right up pretty close to them fish. They all seem to be relating to either wood or brush. Some kind, anything you see up there in that shallow water. A lot of times I'll throw the whopper plopper by it first, or a little square bill. If that doesn't work, I'll pick a jig and flip the jig up and work it through it real thoroughly. But other than that, a lot of stuff kind of the same. We're in the middle of the summertime fishing. The drop shot fish, still not a lot of them on the bottom unless you're around brush piles. I'm still catching more drop shot fish suspended, 25 to 35 feet over anywhere from 50 to 80 foot of water on bluff ends off some of these deeper docks. But if you've got where there's some brush piles in that 35 to 50 foot of water off these long flat gravel points, those are holding some fish. It seems like all the brush piles right now, or most of them, whether they're real deep or they're in that 18 to 25 where I'm catching on a jig, the fish really seem to be starting to relate to a lot of that the brush piles. So, you can go to the Conservation's website, find out where their brush piles are, try to key on some of them. And kind of my rule of thumb, if the water's deep and clear, you want to look for 25 to 45 foot brush piles. Water's got some stain to it, look more in that 12 to 20 foot range. Till next week, good luck, good fishing.